Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 831. I had the white pieces and started with e4, and my opponent went e6, the French defense. So we had a couple of normal moves. Played knight c3, which after this I'm expecting either the classical or the win hour, and knight f6 leads to the classical variation. I go bishop to g5. e5 is possible there as well. And now he goes bishop b4, which is one of the three main moves here. This is known as the McCutcheon variation. D takes e4, the top choice there is known as the Burn variation. And bishop e7, I don't know if that has a name, but that's actually the move I see most often in practice. But bishop b4, the McCutcheon variation, is an interesting line. It seems to ignore this threat, right? The bishop came out and pinned the knight, and e5 was threatened, winning that piece. So white naturally plays e5 since black has ignored it, but black counterattacks. So this was the plan, and there are various moves, but it seems that bishop to d2 is top choice in the database, and maybe the best move here. Hard to say. The chess engine has different opinions depending on how long you let it think, so I'm not quite sure if I can trust the chess position, the chess engine in this position. But going by the opening book, we're both playing the normal moves here. Black takes, and then white usually recaptures with the pawn. I once recaptured with the bishop in this position, and the problem is that the center becomes weak. So you want to retake with the pawn to maintain this strong center here. And then black hops in with knight e4. And it's a bit awkward, actually. It's putting pressure on the knight, and on the bishop. And if the bishop moves, he can actually grab the pawn on c3, although it's not always a good thing to grab that pawn. There are counterattacking ideas, like the queen can come out to f3 with a tempo on the knight in some cases, and hitting the potentially sensitive f7 square. So, but anyway, those are some of the things that are going on here. And the main move is queen to g4, which I did not play, but just wanted to show this variation. We've got some time to explore this because this was kind of a short game, and it's interesting. I think I would play this way. After queen g4, there's two main moves here, either g6, defending the pawn that way, or king f8. And the chess engine prefers king f8, so I wanted to check this line out. And now bishop d3, knight takes, king takes, and so it seems like both kings have lost their castling privileges. And then c5 here, with the idea that if I take the pawn, knight to d7 will win a pawn back and leave me with a fractured center. So that's not good. The main move here is either to develop the knight or to play h4. That's as far as I'm going to follow this for now, but I think I would try playing this way next time around. In the game, in this position where queen g4 was the main move, I played bishop d3 immediately. I just did not know the opening at this point. And he took on d2, so I took back. It seems like this is okay too. The chess engine in both of those variations, this one we're playing and the other one I showed you, which is the king f8, queen g4, king f8 main line. In both of these positions, the chess engine likes black, but it thinks black should still follow up with c5. That you saw that was the idea in the other line as well, trying to fracture my center, and I would probably keep developing here. But it's similar. What's happened is we've got something similar to the mainline variation, except I haven't managed to induce him to play the king f8 move. But we both still have the queens on the board, so some differences there. Anyway, he goes for queen g5, and we're just out of the opening book at this point. And there are other moves I could try here. I think another possibility I should have thought about a little more is f4, this first choice here. After f4, I'm hitting the queen, and I'm also defending g2. He was attacking g2, so I needed to find a way to defend that, or at least so I thought. The other suggestion here the computer engine came up with is knight to f3, and that actually defends the pawn in a way, because after queen takes g2, which is not recommended, king e2, and well, the queen, at first it looks like it's great, it's attacking two loose pieces, but king to e2 defends the knight, and the rook defends the rook after the king is out of the way, so it solves both problems. And rook to g8, or g1 rather, is threatened, chasing the queen back and winning the G pawn here, and maybe threatening to trap the queen even, or at least chase it around a bit. So queen to h3 and rook to g1, and the chess engine gives the advantage to white in this position, in spite of the fact that white is a pawn down. So pretty interesting play. Anyway, the chess engine says queen takes d2 and knight takes d2 is how it would go. Again, this would be kind of similar to the game, but those are options I probably should have considered, particularly the f4 one if I wanted to keep the queens on. But after queen g5, I decided to trade queens here to solve that problem. But that helps out black a little bit. I think black is fine after this with this pressure. There's pressure on the h-file. So I played king d2. Oddly enough, the chess engine would not be so worried about the h-file and would go ahead and play like this. Go ahead and throw that out there, and then round up the pawn with knight to f3. I didn't think about this, but he can't play g5 to defend that pawn, and so it's not easy. I don't see any way for him to defend h4, so white gets the pawn back, and it seems this is fine. Anyway, I played king d2. I'm preparing to move the knight and connect the rook so that this h-pawn won't be pinned. And now he goes f5, which the chess engine rates as a slight mistake. So like I said, it likes black's position here, but not so much after f5. But I have to play this right. Yeah, well, let's go back up. First of all, once again, black should play the move c5, a very typical kind of move in these positions. But if he plays f5, instead of taking on passant here, the chess engine gives this line, h3, and then I was a little worried about g4. The chess engine gives that as a move because it's kind of taking advantage of this pin. But well, I can play f3 here. That's what the chess engine points out, and it likes white in this position because this pawn is a bit awkwardly placed now. I'm really just threatening to take it at least once and then move the knight away. And let's see, if he, well, actually, if I move the knight, then I'm threatening just to win a pawn there. If he pushes the pawn forward, which is actually one of the options given, then the knight can come to e2 and attack that pawn, and he can't easily defend it because the knight will be attacking both g3 and f4. So let's see, taking on f3 and taking back with the knight is given as one of the better choices that black has here. It actually liked that g3 move, which seemed just totally weird to me. It liked this better for black than the other move, where taking on h3 and knight takes h3. So the knight would end up on that square and the pawn would end up over here. But in either case, it gives the advantage to white. And I can see that, well, with the material even and with no particular pressure on my pawns anymore, there's a big lead in development here for white. So it makes sense that white would be better. So that's the way I should play this after f5. Just play h3 and let him push those pawns forward if he can and just stop them with my pawns. And it seems like I have enough time to untangle, and while he's making all these pawn moves, he's not developing his pieces. So that's what I wasn't thinking about. I was worried about these pawn moves, but I was sort of overlooking the fact that when he makes those pawn moves, he neglects his development. So I was worried about things I really didn't need to. Anyway, so I took on passant. He took back, and now black is in decent shape again. Go knight e2, he goes knight c6, finally getting his pieces out. h3, bishop to d7. You know, his bishop is still somewhat limited, so I actually like white in this position, but the chess engine likes black, so there you have it. Let's see, I put my rook on the f-file. I want to play f4 here and kind of bust things up. Oh, I moved the other rook. Sorry about that. Rook h to f1. I guess, yeah, I'm getting away from exchanges in case he pushes the g-pawn. He castled queenside, and I pushed on with f4. And now he took. The chess engine is saying that he can keep an edge here with e5. So this would probably lead to some exchanges like this. Say, well, say I play d takes e5, he takes back, then I would keep taking because I don't want him to wind up with this pawn duo here. So, but now he can grab this pawn, and seems like a decent position for black. After g takes f4, I take back, and now I have an edge here, although it depends on a tactic that I missed. So here's your chance. He played e5. What is the tactic that white has in this position? Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. It's a pretty simple one. It's knight to g6, and it's a double attack. The rook is attacking the pawn, and the knight is attacking the rook. And so there's no time for him to push on with e4, attacking my bishop. You know, I was just worried about my bishop getting trapped over here, which is why I didn't think about ignoring that threat. But, and that's why after e5 I canceled that. After e5 I just exchanged. But knight to g6, even if he attacks my knight, when I take this pawn, I'm defending my knight, so everything is okay. It's just a free pawn. And let's see, and he can't move his rook to defend the pawn because my knight is covering that square. So nice little tactic there that I missed. Yeah, in the game in this position I took because I was trying to reduce the influence of all these pawns and grab over here on d5. And so I noticed, at first I thought I might be winning a pawn, but I noticed before he played it actually, or before I even took, that he did have this discovered attack. And so he gets that pawn over there. So it stays in the range of about even, maybe still some kind of slight edge to black, but nothing great. And I was wondering if there was any other way besides taking the bishop. There are other moves that can be played here. Here's a line that I didn't think much about. Knight e3. Okay, I move my knight out of trouble, but he can immediately put my bishop under attack. I was worried about that, but it turns out, well, his bishop is still under attack too. So rook to h1, the combination of knight to e3 and rook to h1. Let's put those moves on. And those could have been played actually in the other order as well. This is the chess engine's idea, trying to round up the bishop more conveniently. Let's see, he could try taking here, but then, well, I can trade rooks. Take the bishop, and then he has to take my bishop, and I can take. And it's 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, all on one side of the board, and we each have a king and a rook. So that all turns out to be about even. So there's no great advantage to any one way of playing it. So the way I played it was as good as anything. I took the bishop. He took my knight, and then I stepped my king aside to avoid the pin here. And so this really should be an even game at this point. He could try moves like knight a5. That's something. Trying to activate the knight over here, but he's going to have to support it with some pawns. Yeah, it's hard to say where that's going. Or he could play king b8. That would actually enable him to take this pawn. I would have to play something like rook f3 to defend it, but this should still be okay. So everything seems about even in this position, and he just made this one move mistake, overlooking the simple fork. The funny thing is, you know, I had been thinking about this check, and if I had played the check, it doesn't work. Just to show this, if I play the check here, and then he moves his king out, and then I play the fork, I was thinking of this sequence. He can move his king here, then I take his rook, and he gets my rook, and it's all even. So so the order here is very important. The only move to win is to give the fork immediately. And let's see, he played one more move, but resigned after I took his rook. Didn't feel like playing on. With justice, I think with an extra rook, I should have been okay here. So anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon. Bye.